Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Palestinian Authority shows support for the French peace initiative. Israel discovers fishermen smuggling weapons into Gaza, and Israeli scientists discover a link between epilepsy and seeing God. I'm Natasha Kirchuk here with the latest news in Israel. The Palestinian Authority has launched a campaign in support of the French-led initiative to revive Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Yet now it looks like the Middle East Peace Summit is being postponed, and it's all because of a scheduling clash with the U.S. Secretary of State. The French Peace Initiative is due to be held on May 30th in Paris, but now the entire event is being delayed because U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry won't be able to make it. The event falls on the American Memorial Day holiday, and Kerry's schedule is jam-packed. Even though the peace summit is being postponed, Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah has high hopes for it.
As I said before, we have been talking with the Israelis for 22 years actually, and nothing has been achieved. Nothing has been achieved. So now really we wanted this international peace conference in which all countries can participate.
Israel is strongly opposed to the peace initiative and is calling for a renewal of direct talks with the Palestinians. The Palestinian Prime Minister seems to think the international conference can set a new framework for a peaceful settlement, but he's indicated that he's not willing to be flexible when it comes to Palestinian demands.
So we hope that the peace conference, which I hope will be held in the summer, I hope can set new parameters for peaceful settlement between us and Israel, in which all countries can participate. At least the major countries can participate in this conference. And maybe we can set a time limit for the withdrawal of the Israeli troops and the time limit for the establishment of Palestinian sovereign independent state over the 67 borders with East Jerusalem as our capital.
The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is also showing his support for the French-led conference, since he believes unilateral talks will push the Palestinian cause forward.
الحكومة الإسرائيلية رفضت هذه المبادرة وهي بالمناسبة غير مدعوة الآن، ولكن المدعو دول أخرى أكثر من 30 دولة راح تكون موجودة، ونحن نأمل أن هذه الدول تقوم بواجبها وتعمل من أجل الهدف الذي أعلن المؤتمر له، أي دفع القضية الفلسطينية إلى الأمام، وينتهي المؤتمر بعد ذلك بآلية تتابع هذا العمل للوصول إلى السلام بيننا وبين إسرائيل.
The Israeli Prime Minister has expressed concern that the conference will try to dictate terms for a peace deal, and he says direct negotiations without preconditions are the key to a solution. The Israeli Navy has arrested a Hamas-affiliated smuggler who has been posing as a Gazan fisherman, and he has admitted to bringing weapons and illegal materials into the Gaza Strip. The Shin Bet security service have now revealed that the smuggler Salim Namat admitted that he's been involved in naval smuggling for quite some time. Naman is a resident of the Al-Shati refugee camp, and he's also been bringing fiberglass resin to the Gaza Strip, which is used in the production of rockets. That's not all. Naman has revealed other information to his interrogators, including Hamas plans to use Gaza fishermen as camouflage for military actions. Israeli security officials say that Hamas has been taking advantage of a recent Israeli policy to ease a naval blockade by extending the sailing area of Gaza fishermen from 6 to 9 nautical miles. Israel is now on the alert, but Gazans have another issue to be worried about. The Gaza Strip has been under blockade by Egypt and Israel for the last decade, but Israel has begun to ease restrictions on travel from the area. Now, Jordan appears to be emerging as an obstacle, routinely denying transit permits for Gazans and effectively preventing thousands from leaving the territory. Jordan has been a key player in allowing Gazans to travel abroad, and Israel has helped by enabling Gazans to cross through its territory and the West Bank into Jordan. But Gazans can only cross through Israel if they have a special visa from Jordan, and Gazans are experiencing more difficulties than ever when it comes to receiving those permits. Israel recently denounced a UNESCO resolution about Jerusalem that failed to mention any Jewish connection to the city. Dr. Gerald Steinberg is the director of NGO Monitor, and he says the resolution is a part of a new revisionist narrative that's trying to delegitimize Israel's historic claim to the Holy Land. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with him to get the full story.
Academics use the term narrative, story, the history. What do you build for your justifications? And the Arab-Israeli conflict, going way back at least 100 years, is about, first of all, about narratives. It precedes occupation and settlements and warfare. This is our land. We were here 4,000 years ago. Palestinians and most of their Arab allies say, you're all Europeans or something, you were transplanted. This is about narratives, about our history. And the conflict now is about particularly focused on the attempt to erase the Jewish history, to make the Jewish presence in Israel illegitimate. That UNESCO report, which was fed through all the standard Palestinian and pro-Palestinian lines and frameworks, including a lot of involvement of NGOs that deny also the Jewish presence and legitimacy here.
How can a UN-connected organization like UNESCO write a report that includes information that is so fundamentally flawed historically?
UNESCO is a very strange, even for the United Nations, a strange framework. We could say for the United Nations everything is hopeless because the largest single bloc is the bloc of the Islamic states, the OIC, and they are 57 votes automatically, which is more than a quarter of the entire UN, and there's nothing else comparable. Even if all the Europeans were to vote together, which they don't, it would be 28 states. So it is by definition an extremely biased organization. UNESCO, at times, the head of UNESCO the current one has sort of gently walked through, try to avoid those landmines. This one, for whatever reason, it blew up in their faces. And somebody either lost control of the process, didn't care, didn't invest. For whatever reason, it's a huge black mark in UNESCO's records. All of that was part of that narrative war. And it is inconceivable to anybody who looks at the relationship between the Christian world, Europe, and the Middle East and Israel. How is it possible that the French government could have supported such a very dubious document?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Yes, it's understandable that Arab countries would vote for such a thing. It's conceivable that Islamic countries, of course, would vote for such a thing. But the French?
The explanation, the cynical explanation, the realpolitik explanation, is that the French are pushing this big Middle East peace process. They want to take over where they see as a vacuum. The Americans are not pushing very much. There's nothing out there, so that's their sense of glory. And the French have been like this for decades. It's irrelevant who the president, who the head of France is. They've been pushing France anytime they see there's an opportunity. But to use this UNESCO report, if that's the president of France, Hollande, recently, that's in the last few hours, said something like, it was a misunderstanding. Well, it's hard for anybody to understand over here to understand how it could be a misunderstanding. If this was a cynical ploy to get support of the Islamic countries and others to put pressure on Israel, okay, we can understand that, but we can't accept it, and you lose Israel. And that's what Prime Minister Netanyahu said. That's what the Foreign Ministry Director Dory Gold said to the Foreign Minister of France. This is something, it's not just a misunderstanding. Whatever the reason is, somebody got the wrong instruction, it was done cynically, the French have to get away from that. They have to back off of that completely. They have to renounce that whole process.
Because otherwise Israel will be so upset at France that they would be more reluctant to even to attend one of their conferences.
The Israeli position on this French proposal has been skeptical from the beginning, but the Prime Minister and others have indicated, I'd say cautiously, let's see where it goes. We're willing to talk to the French about it. And with this UNESCO vote, even that became virtually impossible.
If you believe in a higher being, having an intense religious experience can be life-changing. So what happens to the brain when an individual experiences seeing God, a phenomenon which is actually pretty common among patients with mental health disorders? An Israeli team of researchers may have actually discovered a link between epilepsy and visionary religious experiences after catching one man's brain in the act. Israeli researchers at Hadassah University Hospital in Jerusalem have been monitoring the brain of a 46-year-old man being treated for temporal lobe epilepsy. During the treatment, the patient had a religious experience where he saw and conversed with God, and the Israeli scientists had the rare chance to actually see what happened to his brain during the incident. The patient is a Jewish man who had reportedly never been especially religious, and he had stopped taking anticonvulsant medication for seizures. Just before his religious incident, the doctors measured a spike in activity in his prefrontal cortex, which is a region of the brain associated with a number of higher functions like planning and perception. The Israeli doctors believe the man suffered his religious visions as a result of a psychotic episode following a seizure, but their study marks the first time the moment has been captured on brain monitoring equipment. Discovery magazine says the experience of seeing God is similar to that of many religious figures from Moses to Jesus, but it doesn't necessarily mean that any of those leaders had epilepsy. Lots of talented musicians from around the world immigrate to Israel to pursue music careers. And along the process, they sometimes end up promoting more than just themselves. Elizet is an Israeli singer who's originally from Brazil, and she's made it her mission to promote Israel internationally. Check it out.
כל חיי אני מדלג מצל אל צל כילד יחף בצהרי קיץ בוערים רץ בשליחות דחופה למכולת.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Natasha.
So let's talk about your singing career. How did it start?
Well, I always was very musical in Brazil, but professionally it started here because I was, when I just immigrated to Israel, I was a dancer and then I was a teacher, samba teacher for kids, and those kids, they were bugging me all the time. You know, Elisette, what did they say? Maybe you have to translate this song for me. And then I just translated one song, and then I said, wow, if I can translate one song, maybe I can try to work on one of my original songs. So I tried, and I succeeded, and then, you know, from then I have already more than 100 songs in Akum here, you know, originals, and I love Israel, I love this country, this is my passion, and really.
So let's talk about that. I mean, you immigrated to Israel from Brazil. How did this happen? What was that process?
Well, my mother, she is a descendant from Sephardic Jews, and my father is a descendant from African immigrants, not immigrants, they were slaves in Brazil, but you know, I have roots in Africa and roots in Sepharad, in Spain, the Jews. And how I came here, I just met someone there in Brazil from Israel. I thought that I was in love with him, but it came out that I was not in love with him so much because the relationship ended after 2 years. But my relationship with Israel is still very, very strong until today. I love Israel.
So where do you get the ideas for your songs?
Well, you know, my life is full of, is a roller coaster all the time. And in Israel is a roller coaster all the time too. So my ideas come from the place that I live with and the things that I would like to change maybe, that I would like to improve. For example, I like to write about tolerance, about love, because anyways, only love can really save us, I think. Love is the best.
So that's a message that you're essentially trying to send in your music.
Yes, because I think that love is everything. Love is everything. Love for each other. You know, it's not only romantic love. I say universal love. That's what I try to bring to everyone, you know, not only to Israelis, to everyone. Also to you in America. I think that really love is the best thing that we can have.
So, you know, should Israeli performers, in your opinion, act as ambassadors to Israel?
Definitely. I think that everyone has the responsibility to stand up for the country that they are from and to try to really do some kind of public relations or to be an ambassador for the country. I was born in Brazil, but I am very much Israeli in my soul, and every place that I come, I always have Israel in everything that I do. And for example, in Brazil, I am an ambassador for Israel, and in Israel, I'm an ambassador for Brazil sometimes. So I am a double ambassador for both cultures. This is very important to me.
Now, for our viewers that want to hear your music, I understand that you have a new CD, right? Can you tell us about that and where we can find it?
Yeah, I am working on a new album, and this album is going to be only guitar and voice. This is something that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to have this baby, and I am already working on it. And it's going to be ready, you know, in next month it's going to be ready. But everybody can already look for my music. I am in America, CD Baby, iTunes, Rumblefish, I'm everywhere.
Okay, great. Well, I'm definitely going to be looking out for
Yes.
it. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And please, guys, look for me, Elisete, it's Elisete, and then you're gonna get to all of my original music.
And you'll enjoy it.
Thank you.
The British band Coldplay has made a name for itself not only for its chart-topping songs, but also for its groundbreaking music videos. This time for the group's latest single, they turned to an Israeli video master, and the new video is already a hit. The video for the group's new single, Up and Up, was designed by Israeli videomaker Vanya Heyman, and it's certainly a sight to see. The video features surreal settings like eagles flying underwater, volcanoes spouting popcorn, and band members walking around as giants. It was just uploaded and already has millions of views, and it looks like the band can thank Heyman for its overnight success. The video was co-directed by Heyman and Gal Mugia, and it's just the latest of many successful projects Heyman has worked on. He's also created videos for other stars like CeeLo Green and Bob Dylan, but he got his start by studying at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. In fact, it looks like Israel even makes an appearance in his latest project. At minute 142 in Up and Up, you can see a wall that seems to be the separation wall between Israel and the Palestinian territories. But in the video, it separates sea and a beach. It looks like Heyman's creativity has definitely succeeded, and viewers will likely have a hard time taking their eyes off the video. In many ways, Israel is a land full of power women. In 1969, Israel became the third country in the world to be led by a female prime minister. And today, 23% of the Israeli Knesset is made up of women. That's even higher than the female representation in the United States Senate and House of Representatives. While Israel is in many ways a world leader in women's rights, there are still some major gaps in the nation's gender equality, especially when it comes to the workplace. So how are Israelis fighting gender inequality in the labor market? I headed over to a special event in Tel Aviv to find out. We're here at the Fair Shared Conference in Tel Aviv to learn about how Israel is working to improve gender equality. Let's go check it out.
The conference discusses the intersection of city, urbanism, city policies, public policies of cities and so on, with gender equality. This year we will talk about education and about workplaces and promoting gender equality in workplaces.
On average, women in Israel earn less than men do, but despite lots of social setbacks, women actually outpace men when it comes to education. 48% of Israeli women have 13 or more years of schooling, compared to 45% of men. You would think all the extra schooling would lead to higher wages among women in Israel, yet gender inequality in the labor market remains stubbornly high. In 2013, Israel's working women earned 68% of what Israeli men did, and the poverty rate among women was 2% higher than among men. So why is this a case? Ol Seri is responsible for gender policy at the Tel Aviv municipality, and she says it has a lot to do with who's in charge.
Policies and the key positions, management positions, are still mostly held by men. You know, women have joined the workforce relatively not that long ago, and equality takes time. And I think since the key positions are mostly held by men, and people tend to like more people who are like themselves, men tend to promote men and to prefer men and so on.
The good news is that it looks like things are changing as the government takes more initiative to promote women's rights.
In 2015, this was the first year that each office of the government made gender budgeting, like examined about 30-40% of the budget of the office from gender perspective to see how gender equality can be improved using the budget.
The number of women in leadership positions also seems to be improving.
In the middle level of management, we now have 51% women and 49% men, which is quite nice. We have, in the municipality, there are 60% of the workers are women, so we're more or less equal, at least in the middle level.
There's still work to do when it comes to making sure women occupy more high-level executive positions in the workforce. Only 25% of the top-level management positions are made up by women, but Or thinks that will change.
The solution is not individual, but it's systematic. So workplaces have the responsibility to pay equal wages to men and women, and to examine the gaps and to be aware of the fact that there are gaps, and just do their best in order to correct the gaps. I think it's a reachable vision. I think I'll be able to see it in Israel in the next few years, is to have a more tolerant, pluralistic society, which gives equal opportunities and the maximal opportunities for each boy and girl, regardless of their religion or origin or, sexual orientation or whatever.
After all, gender equality and women's rights are everybody's issue, right? Tel Aviv Mayor Ron Huldai seems to think so. Why should Israeli people care about gender equality?
Because all men has to be bothered about the issue.
Israelis around the country seem to be taking initiative to get rid of the gender gap and make sure that women have the ability to succeed in life just as much as their male counterparts.
We are Israeli, we prove change. We want changes in our life, We don't accept, everything the way it is.
Hopefully that Israeli need for change will promote gender equality in Israel. This is Natasha Kirchuk reporting for ILTV. It's time for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is shaveh, which means equal or worthy in Hebrew. We told you today about a conference for women's shivyon, which means equality. Fighting for gender and racial equality is a big issue around the world, but Israelis like to use the word shaveh for many more purposes. When you're doing math, you can say 2 plus 2 shaveh 4, or 2 plus 2 equals 4. Shaveh is also really popular in Hebrew slang, and it can be used to say if something's fair. Let's say you're at the market and a vendor is trying to sell you something for too much money. You can tell him "Ze lo shaveh," or "it's not worth it." On the other hand, if you see something you really like and say "Ze shaveh," it's definitely a good thing, and your Israeli friends will know you scored a good deal. Now, hold on, I'm not done yet. There's actually one more funny way that you can use shaveh. If a beautiful guy is walking on the street and he catches your eye, you can say "Eze shaveh," or "how hot." Just make sure you say it to yourself because you don't want to come off as creepy and scare him away. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Today it's overcast in Tel Aviv, but the temperature is a hot 80 degrees. Tomorrow should stay cloudy, but the heat should cool down to 74. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.82 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our next update at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tonight.